I'm Greg Tepper. That's Greg Powers. And this is This Week
in Recruiting.
It's This Week in Recruiting. Greg Powers, Next Level Athlete. Presented by our friends at Chicken Express, home of great rolls. Powers, how you doing, buddy?
Great. They're not only home to great rolls, they're also home to great sweet tea, one of the top-rated sweet teas in the entire country, I have to say. And the chicken strips, they're amazing too.
My boy.
I agree with everything you said. I'm on record as not being a huge sweet tea guy, but I take your word for it as a sweet tea connoisseur.
You even it out with the spicy tenders.
Yeah. I definitely get
You at least dunk the roll and the chicken in the gravy at the same time, right?
Oh, that's...
Duh.
I'm sorry. If you don't do that...
We're not Neanderthals.
I have questions. I have questions about a lot of things in your life if you don't do that. It's This Week in Recruiting. A lot to get to in the recruiting world across the state of Texas. Let's start out east with our prospect on the rise. Our prospect on the rise is Mineola 2021 athlete Trevion Sneed. He was unbelievable in their game against Wills Point. Nominated for Mr. Texas Football Player of the Week this week after running for 301 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had 8 tackles and 2 tackles for loss. This is a guy who's committed to SMU. Feels like he can play pretty much anywhere, but you think that he projects better at the defensive side.
Yeah, and especially after watching this week's highlights, I know he put up ridiculous numbers on the offensive side of the football to get nominated for the Player of the Week this week. But just kind of watching that tape, he's just a bruiser, and a lot of the highlights were on offense. Of course, when you rack up 301 yards in one game, I mean, most of your highlights are going to be running the ball. But on some of those tackles, he was chasing down the ball, carrying the open field, and finishing plays, which I really like to see. He's one of those smaller town guys who, when he gets into college, he's going to be able to make that transition, I think, seamlessly to the defensive side of the football full time, and sky's the limit for him, man. He's one of these guys who is just going to get better as he gets more accustomed to playing one position in college. He has to concentrate on a lot of things right now at Mineola, but when he gets to SMU, they're going to be able to put him in one spot. He's going to be able to completely dedicate himself to it, and he's just going to get better and better, I think, with each day he's in that program.
Yeah, and he strikes me kind of as the kind of guy that and the kind of prospect that SMU is starting to have success with as far as recruiting is concerned. An in-state kid, maybe a little bit off the radar, but they offer early and they get in before a lot of other schools, and they're able to close right now, which is probably the biggest difference between what we've seen in past years versus what we're seeing now with SMU.
Well, the cool thing to point out about Sneed, too, is as a sophomore, he was the defensive MVP when he was playing defensive end at Mineola. So he's done a lot of different stuff. He has a high upside.
Let's move on to our underclassmen of the week. Our underclassmen of the week. Oh, I'm sorry. No, we're going to commit of the week. I'm sorry. I'm going in order. Sorry.
Easy.
Our commit of the week. Getting to our commit of the week. We're going not as far east, but still east of Dallas. Royse City 2021 wide receiver Ketron Jackson has pulled the trigger. He is heading to Arkansas, and this is a nice little get for the Hogs. He had offers from all over, including A&M in Texas, TCU, Alabama, LSU, Ohio State. He's the number 7 receiver in our DCTF Hot 100 in the class of 2021. For a team that hasn't won much, that's a big pickup for Sam Pittman and the Hogs.
I agree 100%. As a matter of fact, Arkansas has done a tremendous job, as we know, covering them the last few years in recruiting the state of Texas. And underneath the new coaching staff, this hasn't seemed to really fall off at all. And I thought that there may be a dip with how they recruited the state, especially after they lost Jeff Traylor, who's a legendary coach out in East Texas. He was tapping into that fertile recruiting ground, but they really haven't missed a beat. They're getting really good players from the Lone Star State, and Ketron Jackson's actually the best of that bunch. He's a bona fide 4-star. You mentioned his offer list, and he's 6'2", 185, but he looks and plays bigger than that, and he is also a speed burner. He's a guy who's got bona fide track speed and kind of brings a little bit of everything to the table. They were the silver medal winning 4x200 team back in 2019. So, Jackson's another one of those guys that has a tremendous long jump. So he's not just a one-trick pony at wide receiver. He's a guy who brings a little bit of everything to the table, including a nice catch radius. He's one of these guys who can high point the football, catches the ball well away from his body, and is just a well-rounded athlete at that position. Got his break onto the scene playing at Lancaster before he transferred to Royse City. So he's played against some stiff competition as well.
Yeah, and that's the word I keep coming back to is well-rounded. It seems like he can do a little bit of everything. We're talking This Week in Recruiting with Greg Powers, the Next Level Athlete, here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation at hashtag TF Today. Let's move on to our underclassman of the week. I want to jump ahead because I just love saying Jaylon Guilbeau's name. He's the Port Arthur Memorial cornerback in the class of 2022. He has narrowed it down to his top 5. And they are some heavy hitters, obviously. Texas A&M, Alabama, LSU, Oregon, and Penn State. Maybe the surprise here is that Texas gets cut from this list, but this is a guy who's a 4-star cornerback there in the class of 2022. Feels like he, and you're the expert here, so correct me if I'm wrong, feels like he's definitely on that list of guys who will be in the running for a 5th star down the road.
Definitely. He's already on the 5-star watch list at DCTF, so he was one of the 35 players we picked out of that. We'll narrow that down to a top 5 players. 5 players in each class are awarded a 5th star, and he's definitely going to be under consideration. I'd like to see a little bit more from him actually on the field in person. Of course, this year was a little bit limited because we didn't have an evaluation period. These defensive backs, before you put a 5th star on them, you want to have the chance to really get a chance to evaluate them, locking down some of the top wide receivers, and you can only do that sometimes in the camp and combine setting in the off season. But Port Arthur Memorial plays some pretty good competition down in their neck of the woods, and so he will be tested. 6 foot, 180. He's a true island quarterback who also has the hitting skills of a safety, and that's why you saw everybody come after him. And you hit the nail on the head at the beginning of this. The fact that Texas was not on this list was a huge surprise. As a matter of fact, when I pulled up his 24/7 sports file, all 3 crystal ball picks in Texas by Texas experts and by national experts. So I know that the surprise not only me but other people.
Yeah, it's a little surprising.
Explosive off the edge and incredibly disruptive. He has a knack for making big plays and forcing turnovers, and that's, I think, exactly what everybody saw who tuned into this game on the stream. So he's one of those guys who, at number 59 in the state, is one that you're like, how is he not a 4-star? We only give away 54 stars. He's number 59, so he's a 3-star, but he clearly or markedly has 4-star talent. It'll be interesting to see if, powered behind a strong senior season, if he's one of those guys who can work his way up that list. Can he work his way up 9 spots and get to the top 50 to earn that 4-star? I think that the indications, at least out of the gate, are in his favor. He's had 2 really good first games to start off this year. He's having a strong senior season, and he brings a presence off the edge that's rare to find in high school football. And TCU got themselves a good one in Chris Murray.
Chris Murray is a guy certainly keep an eye on heading forward into the 2020 season. He is Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete. Follow him on Twitter at GPowersScout. Follow Next Level Athlete on Twitter at NextLevelD1. Find his fine work at TexasFootball.com/recruiting. Powers, appreciate your time. We're going to do this again next Wednesday. I'm booking it right now. I'm putting it in my Palm Pilot.
Let's do it.